Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's lap guide for IMSA Week 11 at Belle Isle. This week we're taking the NSX around for a lap, so let's have a look around. So with T1, lucky enough it's quite easy labelled out for us. You just got to be a bit careful because people forget that this is in like a different unit, so 400, 300, 200. Aim for the 400 here. You want to be right up against the wall on the outside. 300 board is where you're going to be braking, and then your 200 board is where you'll be turning in. It's quite, like I said, it's quite easily labelled out for us, but you kind of will just like miss this if you don't glance over it once in a while. But 300 board, pretty soft initial brake. You want to go to like 60-70%, but like slowly and progressively get up there. If you just jump on the brake at 60-70% instantly, the nose just dives into the ground too much, and you just understeer on the way in because of that. Also, if you kind of like overheat the tyres on the way into turn 1, when you try and apex it in between 1 and 2 in the right and the left, you get a load of understeer, and the car then pushes obviously because of that into the wall on the outside. So just be a bit patient on the brakes. Don't jump on it, get in the ABS. Don't do any of that around here, especially for turn 1. But braking in a straight line, 200 board here on the outside. From here, start turning in. And what you want to do is you want to trail brake it all the way in. You don't want to be apexing it like here. If you're hitting the curve at this point here, you've gone in at the corner too early. And because of that, you run the risk of the car running ever so slightly out to the left, which then makes, in turn 2, makes the left really, really tight. And because of that, you then get a really awful run over the crest and runs the risk of you hitting the wall on the outside. So what you want to do is you want to trail brake it all the way in. As you see Tom here, for instance, is just like trailing all the way in. The best way I'd say is you want to be trying to aim for this like grate here in the ground, which is way before like this wall ends here on the outside where the pit lane is, and where this like tarmac is here. This area here is kind of where you're going to be getting to your closest point to the curb at. If you get the car here with that, you get back on the power at the grate or just before the end of where this wall is, up on the power to 100% between 1 and 2. What that allows you to do then is roll a lot more speed into 2 without running the risk of having to jump on the power mid-corner because you feel like you've slowed the car down too much. And then with that, it allows an extra bit of rotation through the corner. You don't run the risk of going over the crest and understeering into the wall. Especially this week because of the weather we have with a tailwind, it makes this super tricky. It's very easy to get a little bit of understeer, get a bit too confident, and it runs out wide into the wall. But from here, on the power in between, so like the turn 2 itself, like lifting off and like doing a little bit of trail braking is really crucial here, especially this week with the wind, as I mentioned. But you see here, we've got like the grey tarmac and the darker tarmac patch here. So this like transition line here across the track where my cursor is, this is kind of like a really nice little reference point to just lift off here. You don't have to fully come off the power, you can lean on it a little bit, like 10%, or you can fully lean off and brake. It kind of depends on the car. But what Tom does here does what I was going to say is trail brake all the way in, trying to bring it over as close as you can to the inside of the curb here. And you only get on power just where this like wall here is. You see if I go back a few frames, you see here, and then it goes like a sort of darker patch where the shadow is, or like this is always a bit darker than this bit. Once you're like near this, then think about bringing the power in. But don't just accelerate to 100% and expect it to grip. Just build it in, as you see Tom does here. Build it in, so then when you go over the crest, your car should be, if I go to far chase for instance, you see like you got this line here. Your right wheel should just be crossing over this. If you're here, for instance, where my cursor is, this is where you run that risk of running out wide into the wall. And you don't even know you're going to hit the wall till you go over the crest at this point here. And by then, it's too late and you'll be in the wall, and it's very easy to get a lot of damage because of that. So best recommendation is always try and keep it as tight as you can here. Especially like you see this line here. When you're driving, you don't notice it as much, but just try and keep it along this side here. But from here, launch it over the hill, and you should let you go to chase again. You see, you're very, very close to the wall, but you're not running the risk of hitting it. Down to turn 3. Just be careful over here. Like there's a bit of a bump here, and the car can just lose like a little bit of time. So just bring the car over to the left-hand side as soon as you can. And then, again, similar to turn 1, it's nicely labelled out for us. But this one especially is very misleading. You can feel like, I can go into 300 board and get the car stopped. You can't. If you try and break it to 300 board, you're going to go straight and then 1, miss the corner, and 2, really hurt the tyres. So aim for the 400 board here. Bring it all the way up to the wall. 400 board now, brake. And this will be a heavy brake, but you want to build up to about 80-90%. Don't just smash it like 90% brake here. Because what happens then is you'll actually stop the car just a little bit too early, and then you have to run the risk of getting on power a bit early, and because of that, with how the exit tightens here in turn 3, it just gives you a horrible exit. You lose a lot of time, you put a lot of stress on the tyres. So you got to kind of like go in a bit aggressive, but roll it all the way in to then maximise the exit. But up against the wall, brake, you see now Tom does what I was mentioning, up to like 90% brake, right up against the wall. You want to maximise as much of the entry as possible because the curb here on the inside is quite a way out. It's like out here, so it can kind of catch you out. But braking a nice straight line, 200 board and 100 board. So where this line is, I'd probably say is where you want to start turning in as a good reference, or the 100 board. And then from here, start turning in. So, quick little thing with this curb, you can actually use this curb. Tom on this lap, especially here and when turn 4 coming up, Tom actually misses both the curbs. But for me and other people, we can get away with using the curb. It's kind of driver preference. You just nibble it a little bit. Don't try and fully cut across. If you try and obviously do this, you're just going to launch into the wall. But you can get away with just like using a little bit of curb if you want an extra bit of rotation, if you're struggling on the way in. But on this lap, Tom, just trail brakes it all the way in. And you want to pick the power up. The second your right wheel, right front, is just going into where this like curb dips away. At this point here, you see Tom's on power now. From this point, get on the power. Maybe you can be quite aggressive on the initial hit as well here. Run it all the way out. Again here, you can actually just run your left wheels on the grass. It doesn't really affect lap time. It doesn't affect how the car feels. So if you need to, you can run a wheel out here. Into 4. Quite a tricky corner because really, there is, if you look around, there is really no reference, unfortunately. You kind of got like this little like squiggly line here, like this bit where my cursor is. It's quite an okay area. But it's kind of just feeling. With this corner, if you're going really aggressive, you're going to obviously compromise the exit. If you go in soft, yes, you can cut over the inside here, but you run the risk of going in too slow, so when you hit the bump, the car launches and just throws you too far out to the left into the wall. So it's kind of one of those you've got to practice and go with what you feel is most consistent. For me, I always kind of try and go in a little bit softer, try and cut over the inside as much as possible, and then try and focus on that exit up into turn 5. On this lap, Tom goes in, like I was saying, this line here, brake, pretty aggressive, up to 50%, quite an aggressive brake for how little speed you have coming into this corner from the hairpin. But from here, turn in, as Tom does on this lap, he actually goes around and he like late apexes and tries to aim for this. For me, in the Mercedes and the Audi, for instance, I found it more beneficial to drive over the top of this bit. But, again, driver preference, test it. You can get away with cutting over this if you want to, depending on how you want to approach the corner. Either way is absolutely fine. But from here, run it all the way out to the wall. And you got a short run to turn 5. And with turn 5, from here, you should already be looking. You see that the wall here on the outside. Around this point here where my cursor is, where this banner is, the wall itself actually like moves out to the right. So you want to be aiming to try and get your car over around that right hand side just to widen the entry up to turn 5. So roll it in. You see, like it's kind of hard to see in a replay, but when you're driving, you notice a lot. So like you see here, the wall slowly moves away. So you want to be aiming for this. Brake as soon as you get your right wheels alongside that wall is the best place to do it. It's very easy here to go in a little bit too aggressive, and if you get any sort of understeer on the way in because you've carried too much speed in, that is what runs you the risk of running out wide and hitting that wall on the outside. And the same again, if you brake too early, you get clobbering over the inside curb, and this is the one curb on the track you just can't hit. If you hit this, you're in the wall as well. So, unfortunately, it's one of those corners where you just got to kind of go this one area where the wall hits here. From here, turn in, trail brake it in. Pretty late, up against the curb, but do you want to late apex it? If you try and apex it really early, you're just going to run the risk of running into the wall. But again, as soon as you're into here, bring the power up. But just here, I would be very, very gentle on the power. If you try and jump on the power now, like 100%, one, you can either get the car to oversteer on exit and slide, which then gives you a real issue into the next corner, because then the car oversteers on the way in. Or, if you go on power too early, you run the risk of the car just driving out ever so slightly too wide, and in the replay, when you pause it doesn't look too much, but when you're driving, this wall always feels like it sticks out so much more. So just be a bit careful of that. So just be nice and gentle on the power. You see, like, you run it all the way up against the wall. If I go to chase here, you're running your right wheels right up where this grate is. So you can imagine if you're on power too early and you're clouting this wall every round, that's because you've gone power too aggressively and too early. Into turn 6, run it all the way up against the wall on the outside, leave it in second or whatever gear. Normally I wouldn't upshift here from the gear before, so it's like second, wouldn't go up. So just from there, up against the wall, where these light sirens are, these like bits here. It's kind of a good like turn-in point, reference point. Turn in, just nice and gentle. With the NSX, for instance, here you can actually get on power quite early because you can stop the car more aggressive and get on power more aggressive with the NSX. With the Audi and the Lambo, for instance, this week, you had to go in really, really soft and just roll it, and you never really pick the power up till you see how the car bounces here. In the Lambo, you couldn't really pick the power up till like now, whereas the NSX you could pick it up a bit earlier. So it's kind of a car thing here with how the bump is, but the same like concept applies, where you just roll it in. As soon as you get over the crest, pick the power up slowly, drive it into where you see like the lighter patch here where my cursor is. Aim for this, be right up against the wall, build the power in, and you don't really get on 100% power until like near the exit, so you're like, driving towards the wall. If you get on the 100% like here, similar to turn 2, you end up just a little bit too far wide, offline, in the dirt, and in the wall. With that up against the wall, now you have a little breathe up to the fountain section, but just like follow this all the way over to the right. Turn into here. Little recommendation is like try and then aim the angle on the way in, to get the cars as straight as possible. You need the car as straight as possible, as if you can imagine, if you're braking with any sort of steering lock on, the car's just going to like get in the ABS, lock the fronts, and with that, if you have any sort of like front locking into here, this entire section, you just have no front end. So try and get the car in a nice straight line before you brake. Braking point 400 meter board here on the outside. Pretty aggressive on the brakes, jump all the way up to like 80-90% and just bounce it on the way in. Close up against the wall, again same as what Tom's doing, just braking in a nice straight line. Early turning, you ought to go this corner a little bit earlier than you think. Aiming to get your right wheels just where the curb is. See where the car in like falls away, in the curb where the camera is. You want to use that for like, your rotation into here. If you miss that, you end up just going a little bit too far wide, and again you're outside where the wall is, where the risk is. So just use that little bit of camera at the corner. Bring the power in. See Tom here on his lap, actually like, jumps on the throttle, gets off it, gets back on it because he's like hesitating because he thinks he's going to drive into the wall. Biggest thing here, just wait a little bit on power. Just wait and then get on power about now. You don't want to be on power till like, you're crossing this line here, 100% at this point here. With that all up against the wall, run straight away, back over to the right hand side, brake as soon as you're in a straight line once again, same concept as before to try and maximise that front end. Soft brake. You want to apex it, you see the grate again, magic grate as we call it around here. See this point here, you want to be aiming for your left wheels at this point. Trail brake it all the way in, into the curb, and as soon as the car compresses in the curb, just bounce the throttle. Just hold it, because obviously if you try and go on 100% power now, the left rear for instance will just start spinning up. Just be a bit careful of that, but just be nice and gentle on throttle. Drive it all the way up to the wall. And this next section here, you go across, as soon as you cross over this line here, start lifting off. And then just slowly, like just lean off the throttle, but just keep a little bit on the entire time, obviously to keep the forward momentum. But just follow all the way through. Once you pass the first apex, start coming off even more, like to 20-30%. But now you can actually start adding a bit of brake to obviously keep the front end like pointing into the corner. Last thing you want to do here is run out too far wide because it makes the next left. You just missed the second apex, and then it makes the right afterwards super hard. But from here, just over this like middle line here, down one gear, late apex, but you want to be really close to this curb. Trail brake it in, bit of throttle in between, or you can just roll it, kind of driver preference. In the race itself with traffic and fuel saving, you probably just get away with just lifting between here and the braking zone under the bridge. But as soon as you're at the bridge, brake 50-60%, trail brake it all the way in, aiming to late apex this. Again, if you apex this quite early, you run the risk of bouncing out of like this like camber in the corner, and then it throws you out wide, and then you have no exit at all. Especially, it's so easy to lose your entire lap here if you just miss this corner. So this is probably the most important corner on the track for me, in my opinion. Got to get it into the corner, keep it nice and tight up against the curb, be nice and patient on the power, just trail it in, nice and slowly, up against the wall on the exit with no slip. If you're having like huge like exit slip here, it's normally because you've gone power too aggressive and you're just holding it and hoping it'll grip. The problem is as well, if you have slip here a few like 3 or 4 laps in a row, the rear tyres are just screaming then the entire lap, and it's just horrible to like try and drive. So just be nice and gentle on power. So just be progressive, hold it, then 100%. In the final 2 corners, just forward 200 board, pretty aggressive brake, like 60-70%, up against the wall, turning quite early at the 100 board, apex it, on the way in, then back on the power, all the way up to the wall, 100% once you put it against the wall, turn again, so you want to turn in here just before like where this last like blue line is here, lift off. To me, some cars you can do full lift off, some cars you do like what Tom was doing where he does like a little bit of both. Either way is absolutely fine. The main thing is you want to get into the apex of the corner here, where the track falls away, and normally you want to pick back up 100% power once again where this like grate is here. As soon as you get to this grate, 100% power, then from there you can drive it all the way out to the wall. If you're like hitting the wall here, you've just gone power too early, you've gone the power like now and tried to commit to it. So it's kind of one of those simple things around it. If you're like hitting the walls like pretty early, it's just because you got power too soon and too aggressive. Just be nice and patient around here, and it will come to you through the lap. Then with that, go over to the right hand side, and that is a lap around Belle Isle this week.